Welcome to another episode of Empower Apps. I'm your host, Leo Dion, and today I'm joined by, once again, this is number 10, number 9, I don't know how many times, but here for Dub DC26, Peter Witham. Peter, Mr. Compile Swift, it's really good to see you.
Hello, my friend Leo. How are you, sir? It is so good to speak to you. We have both been so busy that we haven't caught up in a while, so how you doing?
Doing great. I am glad to be recording podcasts again. That's the important thing. I'm not going to even introduce you. You have Compile Swift. If you don't listen to Compile Swift, you need to, or UI Buzz. What else?
Yeah,
we'll put the links to all that fun stuff.
Yeah, UI. So Compile Swift, we technically wrapped the podcast last year. However, everybody keeps saying they missed the podcast, so I'm really feeling the pressure. But at the moment, yeah, it's the UI Buzz one because it lets me talk about everything, Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely check that out. So if you have not had the chance to listen to the latest UI Buzz episode, we just recorded. We talked about the keynote and more of the user aspect of that. And right now we'll do what we usually do and jump right into the State of the Union and the developer perspective on that. I don't want to go into like initial thoughts or anything like that yet. I just want to jump right into it.
Okay.
And so the first big thing that they talked about, which is what everybody was expecting, we're finally going to get back to 2024 and have Apple Intelligence. But there's actually some really cool stuff we've got for developers. Peter, do you want to go over some of those?
Yes. So let me start by saying that I'm actually, for once, really excited that I think this is going to work, Leo. I think Apple Intelligence is going to work. I hope. And I'm also, excited about it in the Xcode world, and we'll get into it. But it is very interesting, the approach they have taken, I think. And I think especially for developers, I feel like we've got better options for working with AI this year, not only as development, but also access on the user side as well, right?
Right. Yeah, and they have quite the breakdown of different things. I couldn't quite catch the part about Swift packages and how you can make AI models into Swift packages. So I'm going to be curious about that.
Yeah.
We got kind of what has been heavily hinted at. If you've been using anything with foundation models, it takes in a closure. And we got a little bit more information about why that is with multimodal builders and dynamic profiles and things like that allow a lot more context, just a lot more robust. I don't want to call it prompts because it's much more than prompts that can be fed to your different AI models. Better integration between foundation models and vision, access to private cloud compute, which is really cool, and a lot of tools that'll be open sourced and available to us. Yeah,
and I know, of course, you do a lot of open source. So many folks do, but I'm always keeping an eye on your repos. So you must be pretty excited about the fact that they're open sourcing a lot of this from the get-go, right?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm looking forward to see what kind of tools I can build with foundation models, or what kind of we'll get into developer tools later, but just a lot more. It seems a lot more there for us to tap into.
So let me ask you: Have you done much with on device foundation and that? I guess in the previous year, right? Well, we don't go back too far, but I
have played out with foundation models. Yes.
Okay.
It's fine. It doesn't give me what I want. I don't know if that's my fault or fault of foundation models, but I'm told the foundation models is pretty limited for the on-device stuff. So I'm excited to play around more with that. Okay. I have some really interesting ideas that I could build on top of, which I already started last year, so that'll be good.
Yeah, and then, will be interesting, like you say, to see how how you can ship these things for other folks to take advantage of, beyond the sort of that standard, here's my repo, go figure it out, right?
Yeah. Have you done anything with app intents or foundation models or any of that stuff?
I have done just a small amount with app intents, and it was funny because it's one of those, I did it without realizing I was doing app intents, which is always kind of interesting. You're like, oh, that's what that is. I was doing some features recently in one of my apps, and you know how it is. You're busy doing this and hooking this up and everything, and then you realize this is an app intent.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I didn't go too deep into it, but I will say I was surprised. So this would be based on, Xcode 26 and the current version of Swift. It was a lot easier to do than I thought. And it's kind of one of those, like, I had not learned very deeply on these things, so I kind of expected to struggle. So you can imagine I was quite surprised, and I'm like, wow, actually, that helped me figure it out pretty good,
Right.
Yeah, so I am also very interested to see where this takes us now, because it'll allow me to think about this more and to say, I don't want to be one of those, I just put this in my app because everybody's doing it, right? And to look at it and go, what would be a good thing my users want to do? Or by way of app intents, shortcuts, and so on, what is something that I would want to open up so that somebody else can take advantage of without me restricting them to, you can only do this.
Right. Yeah. So I'm hoping that all that work that we've been working on with app intents comes to fruition here, right?
Yeah. I think it will. And I think you get that vibe that this is clearly the direction Apple sort of wants you to take, is to think about some of the inner workings of your apps as being very modular, and like, we'll take bits from different apps and construct this and get an end result, which is what I think shortcuts was sort of always meant to be, Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
Do you, what was I going to say now? I'm forgetting. Do you think app intents is kind of like MC?
I hadn't thought about that. I guess
like
in a way. It
like
kind
a
of
baby MCP.
Yeah, like a restricted, like, walk you through it, here's what you can do without hurting yourself kind of approach.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. Yeah, that is a good way to think about it. Yeah. Especially
if I'm wrong,
you use it
let me know, anyone in the audience.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And if you got an example, tell us, point us to it. Yeah.
Because it seems like that's what it is, right? It's a way for Apple Intelligence, rather than, say, a typical LLM, would be able to interface with something and understand how something works.
Yeah, it's almost, make a nice interface in a coding sense, right? Making a nice interface into it, rather than making everybody struggle through pages and pages of documentation.
Right.
That is interesting. Yeah.
So, anything else you want to talk about with Apple Intelligence? I feel like I can't say a lot on June 8th, 2026, because I haven't had a chance to watch videos or play around with any of the code or to read all of the smart people's out there blog posts. I'm kind of like an LLM. I'm not ready to give you good code based on what's just been announced. So, yeah.
I will be watching a lot of video. I haven't been through the whole session list yet and made my shopping list, but I will definitely be paying attention to any and all the videos I can find from Dub on this.
So we can go over that. I'm not going to list every video, but there is some interesting stuff besides what we've talked about with AI. Let me look. Yeah. So there's a video about who's in this video, but there is a video on building real-time apps and using gRPC, which I have been really interested in. Let's see, who is this? But gRPC, for those who don't know, all right, George Barnett. I've never met George, but gRPC is like a way to do communication, kind of like WebSockets, but a lot better than WebSockets, to stream data. So instead of like a REST API, you would have JSON, right, typically, but gRPC uses basically like protobuf. So you instead of coding it in JSON, you encode it in binary, and that's something I've been really interested in doing. So
which must be
I'm excited to see more stuff about gRPC there.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it's
that's
binary.
Cool. And then there is what's new in Swift data. Oh my gosh, are we actually going to see improvements on Swift data? Because
it's a very short episode.
I'm super excited if that's going to be the case.
It's a very short video that just says there is nothing new.
Have you done anything with Swift data, or are you a core data person still? Or is it SQLite?
I have done mostly core data. I have done very little with Swift data. Now, I want to stress it's not because I'm avoiding it, which, yes, in the early days I was avoiding it like many folks. My apps were built originally using core data, and it's kind of one of those, well, this fragile engine is working, leave it alone, you know. However, I will say the playing around that I've done with Swift data, you know, we all make those experimental branches, right, has been okay. And I do think at some point I'll probably need to update my apps to go from core data to Swift data. So I hope there's some good love this year with that to make it less painful. Not that I've had a lot of pain, but I know we all have developer friends who will
maybe not
tell
Swift
you how
6
many
ready
days
or not Swift UI ready or what.
Through, right? Yeah. I mean, I haven't really had too much. I think it's difficult to say whether it was maybe it was user error, because it was mostly around syncing to the cloud. So cloud, you know, with CloudKit and that as well. And I feel like it was kind of an if button, maybe. Sometimes it would work, and sometimes it'd be fast. Sometimes it's not fast, and you know how it is. It's like, is that me? Is it the network? What's going on? And most of the time I say to myself, it must be me, right? But then you get to the point where it's like, well, but wait, it's working really great right now. So I don't know. But mostly I feel like the filtering can sometimes had been a little bit slow on what I would say is not huge amounts of data, but not small amounts of data either. Again, I'm sure it's a lot of it is you could probably performance tweak your apps to work
100%.
That is an area that I do want to see Swift data.
I mean,
really,
my burn with Swift data has just been the way it's handled Swift 6.
Now. You know what I mean?
And just like, I don't know, it's just weird the way it does stuff and encodes and decodes data that, like, it shouldn't be this hard, like, to do what I want to do. And just sometimes it feels really awkward the way the API works. I'm a little bit burnt on it, and I know a lot of people are like, they're just going straight up SQLite. They're like, forget it, I don't want to do it anymore. So I'll be interested to see if Swift data is still the way of the future.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting because a few times I've thought to myself, just go back to Swift.
Right.
You know,
100%.
Go back to SQLite, be done with it. But then I feel like I'm avoiding the inevitable. Right?
I'm not, like, I like SQLite. I get how it works,
I should
but
go through
I
the
feel like
learning
writing
pain
that close
now,
to the metal is not a good idea.
Because I know I'm going to have to at some point. So might as well do it while it's an option. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, hey, look, if there's something that in theory should make this easier for me to work with, I should go with that, right? You know, it's kind of like you say, it's like working with the metal framework, for example. It's like, I get it, but I shouldn't have to learn all that to do it.
Talk about some of the... So
and
I'm
sure it's great for those
design,
who do,
but I'm not going to go into design because I haven't tried Swift UI with the new and improved liquid glass, so I'm not going to get into that. But I did want to cover... I wanted to get into the new
okay. You know what, Leo? Let me save you.
And I don't know if it's related, but iPhone mirroring. So, like... So iPhone mirroring, you can like basically resize and do whatever you want with the iPhone on the Mac. Okay.
Yeah. If they're... So I'm glad you mentioned these because I didn't want to... I did like a quick little podcast earlier for my PW podcast, just my general thoughts.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And I purposefully avoided talking about these because I wanted to talk about them with you.
Yep. So basically, it's a
it might not be by the time I've finished, you'll be like, what? So the device hub, let's talk about that, right? About bloody time, right? Yeah. So that's that one covered, right? But the iPhone mirroring struck me as, you remember, and I'm sure other folks out there will, when Swift UI started coming around and Apple started that year saying,
I feel like they've been saying that for a long time.
Don't get too hooked up on specific screen sizes and all of that kind. And we knew that meant something. Exactly. And so I feel this idea of being able to resize to whatever you want. Yes. Yeah. Right? So there's no restricted ratio unless you want there to be one, right? So to me, what does that say? It says, okay, iPhone Pro, Pro Max, whatever, iPad, they're all designed, they're sizes, right? There's ratios to them. Now, let's talk about some device that maybe we don't know about, that is some kind of screen that becomes a single screen that unfolds into something else, and therefore it's no resolution.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
that's
100%.
That's my thoughts on this. Is
do you
get
use
ready
iPhone
for this,
mirroring?
Because here it comes.
100%. Yes.
You know, yeah. Which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I don't use iPhone mirroring. Do you know? And let me tell you, and I'm going to test this when I finally install, or someone could install and tell us. Please do that so I don't have to.
Okay.
I don't use iPhone mirroring because I use a left-handed mouse.
Really?
And on iPhone
I use a left-handed
mirroring,
mouse. That's why I'm like,
it can't deal with switching the buttons. So,
I
in
don't
other
use
words,
iPhone mirroring for different reasons. So I don't even have enough experience
this is
with
interesting.
it.
Is it only me?
Like, for me, the reason I don't use it is because I have my iPhone right in front of me. Like, I have a little guitar stand thing that I put my iPhone in.
So that's why I don't.
And then I just use my iPhone there. And then when I have used iPhone mirroring, I've had, like, the notifications from the iPhone come to the Mac, and I don't want that. I don't like that. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Because for once, I've got my iPhone right here. Ordinarily, couldn't tell you where the hell this thing is in the house.
Okay.
So I think we spoke about it when iPhone mirroring first became a thing. I was super pumped and super excited, and then I used it.
The problem is iPhone notifications are not the same as Mac.
I actually like getting my messages and
I
notifications.
don't care about some
desktop.
special sale at Kohl's, like, or whatever. It's like that stuff annoys me. So then it's like,
agreed.
Yeah. And I don't use. Yeah. We were talking in a previous recording about screen time. Like, one of my big pet peeves with screen time is
actually that's so.
I don't use the Mac like I use my iPhone. So like, I don't want the same limits on my Mac that I have on my iPhone because I use it for different things. So it goes back to the whole like notifications thing. I don't want the same notifications on my Mac that I have on my iPhone. It's just not the way I use it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I joke about this, but it's also
same
true.
Here.
For someone who spends all day every day making mobile applications, I barely ever use.
It's just
my
not
phone.
like I've started using Claude code on the phone to make quick fixes to code, but otherwise, and check my email and but that's about as close as worky things that I do on my phone.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, my phone is truly used as a consumer device.
I know.
And ordering food device. It's the most expensive food ordering system I've ever owned. You know, but beyond that, I'm always in front of a Mac. And so, you know, well, the times that it matters. Exactly. Let me put it that way, right? Because my phone, like, I don't want to hear about it 4:00 in the morning because it'll never be good news. You know. Which is also why I love having. They said this, so I must have missed this. Here.
Okay.
Super excited to have an independent volume for the alarm clock on the phone. Let me just get that out of the way. Yeah. So I'm like, yes. But yeah, no. So iPhone mirroring, never use it because it's just been terrible up until now. If they fixed it, maybe I will. But even then, right? I mean, if you think about us as software developers,
right?
If I've got, I'm not going to mirror my iPhone and test it there. We need to know what it feels like, right? And we're going to pick up our device for that, you know. Well, we say that, but the new independent sizable simulator
Did you ever
Sorry,
buy a Vision
mirroring
Pro?
and potential simulator. Yeah, I'm not going
Good
to buy
man.
a Fold for what it's going to cost. So maybe I'll
See,
change.
because like the
Yeah.
excuse was, I'm gonna buy it because
No.
I'm gonna develop apps for it, and then
And I still want one.
yeah.
The amount of
So
people
no,
I
I'm not
know
gonna
that
build.
have
I'm
burned
not gonna build
hours
an
on
app for the
apps
iPhone
and
Fold
are
for
really
the
mad about it.
the few people.
Yeah.
Like it's as a developer, I
Yeah.
can't make that excuse.
And I can't either.
Right.
And I also
Right.
can't think of an app, or certainly any of my existing apps or anything like that, that really need it at this point, right? Other than, okay, if it opens up the option to do
Swift
iPad
UI, we've
type
got.
layouts on a
I like. I
phone,
want to play around with these
that would be
reordering
interesting,
containers. I've
Yeah,
had
I'm not gonna
issues
burn
with
the
that
hours.
over the last few years when I've tried to do something like that. So reordering containers, swipe actions. I'm really excited
Yeah.
about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I recently watched, bless him, shout out to a friend of mine, Notify, on Twitch. He spent a lot of time figuring out how to do some drag and drop stuff.
So it
And,
goes.
Apple just made it easy for him.
I know a
he's-
lot of
he's
people
both
who hate
happy
TextKit
and
and
extremely
think that Apple has not done a good job with TextKit.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping that that's
exactly. Right.
been
yeah.
remedied in the latest release. We'll see.
Yeah, I
Okay.
use, in my apps, I've been using the repo, and I'll find the link for it. Rich Text Kit, I think it's called, if I remember rightly. I love that. Absolutely love it.
Okay.
Because, yes, the text kit doesn't well,
Right,
the
right.
last release where we got the formatting tools
And then
helped.
we see even more
But
usage of macros with
it's still not
state
as
being
good.
moved from an
Yeah.
attribute to a macro. I do wonder, or property wrapper, excuse me. I do wonder what the future of property wrappers are in Swift. Because
Isn't that
I
interesting?
know
Yeah.
that there's a few, like Fluent has run into issues with property wrappers, and I think they want to move over to macros probably. And so I'm kind of like not surprised by this. Like, and I'm wondering if we're going to see a slow migration away from property wrappers to macros.
That's what I was going to ask you was, do you think that properties have a future? And I'm sure they still do,
Right.
but
And like
I
the
feel
thing
like
about property wrappers are
starting last
easy
year,
to do,
Apple
right?
with macros
So,
was like, this is the way you should
Right.
go.
So
Yeah.
like having to go from property wrappers to macros.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That
you get
seems like a
used to
steep
it,
learning
right?
curve.
You know.
So yeah, hopefully they make that easier going forward.
Yes, yeah. Right, and I think
Right,
again, it's
exactly.
a learning curve that
Do
we
you-
all know.
Do you have custom
we're gonna have
property
to go through
wrappers
that
in
at
your
some
code?
point. But if I can wait until it's
Okay.
easier, that's when I want to do it. Again, it's that thing of as I don't really. Well, I guess I've sort of
They're really easy to
not
work
avoided
with,
them, but
and like they just compile.
I've not
Whereas I
hit a
feel like
situation
macros,
where I felt like
you end
that
up having
was
to
the
bring in a
only
whole
answer.
like syntax library, and it's just going to be massive, right?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I agree. And when I think about some of the other apps that, like my non-personal apps, where we use some properties and stuff, yeah, once it's in place, it's like, great, we're good,
Right.
And it does feel like it's a lift to say, well, I feel like the moment if I converted it to a macro, it's just because. And I'm sure there's a good argument
What was the thing about
for
URLs?
convincing me to do it. I've just not heard
Do you remember
it yet.
that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't. I'm trying to think. I remember URL being mentioned. And I can't for the life of me, because it was mentioned sort of in passing, and I can't remember what it was.
Is that what it was?
And I think they were talking about.
Okay.
Were they talking about
So-
like app URLs?
That's okay. We'll find out
I
eventually.
think it might have been, maybe.
So we have
I can't remember.
a new document API. I use the document API with Bushel, but honestly, I'm thinking about getting away from that. Yeah, one thing I've run into is just
Mhm.
it's more work than it's worth maintaining documents as opposed to just storing
Really?
stuff on your main hard drive and just assuming that's where Bushel stores VMs. So I'm a little. That's funny because the Swift data and the document API have been two things that have not burnt me, but just like it's not worth it to me to have to keep it. So for a lot of reasons. And then, do you want to talk about the spatial preview framework?
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw them mention it. I'm not sure that I totally get I guess those apps and that would use these,
same
take
here.
advantage of these kind of things. It's not the space in, pardon the pun, it's not the space in which I live. So to me, it's not really clicking as to why should I be excited? I'm sure the folks who do it are like,
Yeah,
this is
let's
great.
jump into Swift.
You know.
So, previous episode, I had Giannis Orlandis come on and talk about Swift everywhere, and I was really happy to see Holly talk about that today, how Swift is everywhere. We've got some great examples of apps that use full stack Swift, Framio, Flighty, and GoodNotes. We specifically talked about GoodNotes last time. But they all use Swift both on the server and the client. GoodNotes, I think, uses Swift on the web as well, which is really cool. So yeah, we're just continuing to see a maturization of Swift in 2026. Out of all the things we've talked about that we've been not too happy about, I would say Swift has continued to improve. I know there's people who are like, Swift, it's gotten too hard, it's too complicated, blah, blah, blah. It can be, yes, but it doesn't have to be depending on what you're doing. So, I think it's been a success in that regard.
Yeah. I do too. And first of all, let me just say, folks, if you haven't listened to that episode with Giannis, go listen to it. It was really good.
Yeah, well, that's all Giannis.
You guys kept me company on a couple of trips to the office and back. So thank you for that. Yeah. But Swift is okay. Any language, when it first starts out, is simple, right? Because it's the best way to build a language. And of course, over time, as more things get added in, it feels more complicated to those who are joining that weren't there from day one. Or in our world, there's, we joke about this, Swift developers, right? There's before version 3 of Swift, and then there's after version 3 of Swift. But it is one of those things where, yes, it can feel more complicated as more stuff gets in there. You can overwhelm yourself, certainly. But I really think Swift has reached a good position where it makes a lot of sense to now talk about putting it, the fact that it exists on so many platforms, and like Wendy OS, right? And things like that. I think it's now at a point where it deserves to be talked about in that kind of context. It's still a shame that it's not as easy or as supported as it should be on Windows, so we could just write Swift Windows apps for those poor unfortunate folks. But other than that, I love that we are seeing it everywhere. Like when Giannis was talking about the robots and things like that. It's like, this is fantastic.
I agree.
It makes it feel like a language that a lot of folks
we're also seeing a lot of Swift
now should,
under the hood.
This thing's here to stay.
In a lot of places. The QIC or Quick UDP Internet Connection stuff. So a lot of networking stuff there that'll pass on to Swift Neo. TrueType font rendering, CoreOS kernel. Yeah, there's just a lot more under the hood at Apple that's being written in Swift, and that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm so glad that they really made a point of talking about that, because it has been a thing where communities that we both hang out in and in general, there's always, of course, this conversation about, well, how much is Apple actually using it themselves, right? And that has been very true to a certain point. But again, I think that also now speaks to... It sounds I think awful. That's fair. I'm doing it an injustice. It's now mature enough that Apple's going to use it for their core stuff, right? For their core programming, But that to me is a signal that says, okay, we are not going to get the craziness of breaking changes like we've had before. And, especially someone like with Apple dog fooding it more and 100%. More themselves. That's only going to help us in the long run, because let's face it, they should know it better than anybody.
Yep.
Right?
Agreed. I think that's a really great point. So they should feel
the pain more than the rest of us.
One little nicety that I really like, I don't know if it's a macro or an attribute, but we don't have to do it available for every single freaking platform We could just say any Apple OS. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Because I have to do that all the time.
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, and you know, yeah, because you know you end up with just like,
So I
do
assume
I
any
need to
Apple
like put a shortcut?
Well, okay, there's a couple of
text
things that had to
shortcut
happen,
into
I'm going to
the-
assume.
to the system, so I don't have to
If
type it
anybody's
every
watching
time.
this knows the answer to that, but I assume it could only have happened once they switched everybody to the same OS version numbers. Because I don't think it would have like, does it work for like iOS, macOS 13, iOS 17? Like, because those numbers don't match. So then, how would you even be able to say any Apple OS? But I meant for the versions that came out in whatever 2024, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. To me, I think it would work. Like if I was doing this, then God help us. But you know, it would be like any Apple OS means 27, 26.
So
anything else
you can't.
than that, I would not be surprised if I
I'm
had
gonna
to
post.
specify.
I'll share the link with you, but
As
there are
almost
ways
like an exception.
of doing the older OSs. So there's a whole discussion on the forum post about that. So we'll see. But yeah,
Interesting.
you
Okay.
think, right?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think that it makes sense that it would be the uniform releases, right? Yeah, which is more of an indicator of use this thing going forward, you know, try and sort of course,
Yeah,
eventually,
exactly,
thankfully,
exactly.
because of Apple adoption rates, this should
All right,
be
let's
a
see what else we
problem
have
for
in the
2 years.
notes. Where are your notes?
Yeah.
AI plugins. I am really excited to play around with that. So plugin seems like kind of a generic term for a set of tools involving AI.
I was just going to mention
skills,
that one.
which I still have to work on. Still a baby when it comes to that stuff. But there's plugins, tools, and a couple other things that qualify as a plugin.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested in playing around with that. I have my own little template I've been working on for full stack Swift development. So see if I can play around with that.
Interesting. Yeah, because you know that's another thing where I forget at what point we had these. You know, Xcode's got plugins, but it really wasn't. Beyond you can do a thing with the current file in the tech code editor. That's great. And then it sort of stayed there, right? So I think that this is a very interesting move. I think it's maybe what Apple had envisioned all along, because when you say plugin, like think of any other IDE, right? When you say plugin, it's a multitude of things we can do, right? Make it your own, you know? And so I understand Apple has been reluctant to do it, because why mess with the stability of Xcode when it's a bit of a thing to begin with? So it is a bit of a brave move, but maybe they feel like, okay, we got this thing down to a point where we
How
can
much have you deep
sandbox
dived
these
into like
plugins
AI
without
tooling and like
making the world
skills and
miserable.
things like that?
Yeah.
Yep, same here.
So I use Claude Code. I'm mostly, so let's put Xcode to one side for a second. For everything else, I use it in the terminal. And what has really made it work acceptably in a trustworthy way for me is the use of skills, but in particular agents. So, for example, you know, let's you know, it could apply to any language, right? Swift in particular, and that. But I have for Godot, the game engine of choice that I use. I have some that are code reviewers. I have some that are expert agents at whatever, 3D animation, all these kind of things. And so for me, agents and skills are what have really made AI coding a workable thing. And so having a good set of Swift-based, and I know there are some out there on GitHub, and I've not really messed with them, and I really should try them out. I think we'll do the same thing. It's like, great, if I can use these and now use them in Xcode because I'm using Claude Code in Xcode, it has been so helpful as a sanity check, if nothing else, to just sort of say, look, you know, I did this thing. Does this look like a good way to do it? You know? But
Right.
it's only because agents and skills have made it enabled me to
So
refine it to the point that I can.
we
do
don't have to.
that,
We did. Did we talk about Intel? We talked about Intel and the design in the previous recording. Right. I think
we did.
Yeah. I mean,
we
I
sort of
think I'm
touched
all
on the fact that
set
it is
as far as what I
time
want
to
to
let it
talk
go.
about.
Just
like, I guess the one thing I wanted to say, that I felt burnt over the last 3 years, and so like I'm a little bit like, I'll see it when I believe it for this stuff, because it seems like a lot of stuff gets talked about and then we don't see it, or it's not done well. Because I was thinking, like, okay, there was the Vision Pro, there's Apple Intelligence, and then there's Liquid Glass, and it seems like they've not been great big releases. Like, Swift is the one shining example of something that I feel like has definitely improved. But, like, as far as those 3 tentpole features that Apple has put out, it's not been great. It's not been great.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, and I agree with you, and I'm hoping that, we can debate whys and so on, but I'm hoping that Apple has got past feeling the need to announce things so early that it just absolutely was setting itself up for a fall every time. Right. And if it was just to satisfy the board and spike the numbers, well, I hope you learn from that, But I also think it's interesting that over that same period of time that you mentioned, it's become running jokes. Some things with Apple have become running jokes, which
Right.
I got to think, to a company like that, and someone, if I worked there, that would hurt more than anything, right? You don't want to be the 2020s running joke that Microsoft was in the early 2000s or something, right? So I'm with you. I was kind of burnt out on these not false promises, but these things that were supposed to come that never did, or when they got here, it was like, really? That I just stopped listening for the most part. And I want to go on record now and say this is the first year at the developer conference in quite a few years that I'm actually excited enough that I want to believe that this stuff is going to happen, because that will re-energize me. I have been doing less and less Apple development other than the day job, because that is my day job. But I have been doing less Apple development things in favor of doing game development, other stuff, and even using my Linux laptop more than my Macs, which hurts something terrible.
Right.
But I'm really hoping that these changes now, like I've said before about how Glass is just so horrible, I just don't even want to use it. So I'm hoping that this year, with this stuff that's really got me excited about Xcode and just the OSs in general, it puts back that excitement to want to use it and mess with it.
And we'll see.
So
we'll
I'm
start
with
playing
you.
around with Xcode
I'm
17
out,
or 17,
but I'm ready
27,
to recover. But you got to give
and
me
hopefully
something,
we'll get
27. I've got it installed. Yeah, I have installed it. So I know it installs. That's as far as I got. I probably won't mess. Well, okay, famous last words, right? We all say this every year. I'm not going to mess with Beta 1. And then we do that social post at 3 a.m.
I'm not going to say either way.
I just installed Beta 1 and it's fantastic, Yeah. There's a reason. So let's put it this way. There's a reason now that I've got 2 Macs again, right? And it's not just so I've got the laptop for convenience. It's so that one of them
I haven't had a
have
chance
the
to test out
slightly
Bushel
dubious
with
beta
macOS 27,
versions,
so we'll see. I know
and
people
not
are just
have to
having
worry
issues
about
installing
crashing
macOS
everything.
27, period, let alone in as a VM. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
stay tuned. Yeah,
really?
Me too. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
Where can people find you?
To see how it works in Bushel. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Leo. As always a pleasure, my friend. You can find me at, you can go to many places, but peterwitham.com is my main site. And of course, as you have mentioned, even though it's been a little while, Compile Swift is what everybody knows me at. So you'll find me everywhere listed as.
You're welcome. Great to have you on
again,
Peter, as usual.
An episode,
you can find me on social media at LeoGTon, at C.IM on Mastodon. My company is Bright Digit. Just go to brightdigit.com. I would really appreciate if you'd take some time to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're on a podcast player, subscribe, please, and post a review. I want to thank our Patreon members like Steve Lipton, who have been amazing at helping me out. Thank you so much. Consider joining Patreon. These episodes get out early, so I think if you want to catch the stuff sooner rather than later, definitely get on that. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to talking to you again. Bye!